Well, ghosts, there is no such concept in Islam of a ghost. Like ghost as understood in the Western world, as we know that there are places in the Western world where paranormal activities are witnessed. And they attribute that to ghosts, like the souls of those people who have died, roaming around and causing all these problems. Islamically, such definition of a ghost does not exist. Because we know when a person dies, the soul is taken away into the world of barzakh. If it's the soul of somebody who is a wrongdoer, a disbeliever, a kafir, a mushrik, a munafiq, then it is locked up in sijin. And if it is the soul of a believer, then it is in illiyin, in different levels of barzakh, where the soul is free in terms of in the world of barzakh, not locked up, and it goes through several blessings. So this whole idea of souls of those people who were dealt with unfairly roaming around the face of the earth is a concept that is un-Islamic, because that is what the purpose of the Day of Judgment is, to pass the judgment and give the justice to those who are not served justice in this world. So if the souls are roaming around and taking their own revenges after they've died, and especially haunting places and taking revenge from those people who have done nothing wrong to them, it itself is such an unfair thing. Then those souls should actually go through a trial too for troubling those people who have never done any harm to them. So this whole process of ghosts attributed to those souls to whom injustice was committed, and they're lingering around and committing constant injustices, this whole thing just doesn't make sense. So what exactly is the concept of ghost? Well, the concept of ghost, which is a term used in the Western world, is more or less attributed to paranormal activities, means activities that are beyond human understanding. If you go into the Eastern world, or if you go into Asia or Africa and different parts of the world where the concept of jinn is being used, where the idea of a jinn is exactly the same attributed to a paranormal activities. They have dwelling places. They do not want to interact with us until we invade their space, until we harm them. Or if they are shayateen min al jinn, they would want to cause unrest in our domain, because that's what their job is. So these things that you are calling ghosts in the Western world are basically jinn activities. These are not the activities of the lost or the disturbed human souls. These are the jinns who are showing themselves either to scare people away, or you have stepped now into their domain, or their house, their dwelling places, because there are certain abandoned places where the jinns take over, and then the humans who had once abandoned these places want to move into these places again. So that's when the jinns give them a hard time. And those things where people are like, okay, this is a ghostly place. It's not really a ghostly place. It is something that has been possessed by jinns. It is their house, and you're moving into their house. So they will not appreciate it exactly the same way that you do not appreciate anybody moving into your house, be it jinn or another human being. So they will retaliate. Or there are certain places where jinns live, and we unknowingly build a human settlement there. So if there are humans in huge number, massive numbers, we see that jinns sometimes move out and they find a different dwelling place. Or if you are building one particular house and there are no other settlements, and that house is apparently at a place where the jinn settlement was, then they continue to take over that house, and they consider this is to be our dwelling place. Or sometimes what happens in a given settlement, one particular house has been built in a place where jinns used to live, so they possess that particular house. So I'm not in any shape or form an expert that you will contact to say, okay, so-and-so person is possessed, what can we do? So I am not an amil in that regard, that I will work with you to cast jinns out. I'm just giving you this information because recently somebody just sent a comment that, oh, I've moved to Canada, and it's only in our countries where we hear about the jinns, and there are no jinns in the Western world, and how is it possible? That means this whole thing. And then the person just went on and on and on in the comment. So all of these paranormal activities that happen in the West, and I can give you the whole list of places in the United States of America where we live. And that person moved to Canada, I can give you a list of places in Canada also. And for those of you who are from United Kingdom or other places in Europe, there are several places in those countries as well. Unfortunately, because they do not have the knowledge about the jinns. That knowledge was given to us through the Quran. There's an entire surah in the Quran on jinn, and there is a jinn conversation in Surah Al-Ahqaf, and there's so many other places where jinns are mentioned in the Quran. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have told this information to us, we would not even know about their existence. And we do not know about the existence of so many other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has created. So that doesn't mean that those things do not exist. They exist. But since the people who do not have knowledge start giving them names from their understanding, like the ghost, or in certain mythologies, they give, again, in Hindu mythology also you have this concept of an Atma, which is roaming around, which is like a soul, concept of a soul in Islam, ruh, and they call it Atma in Hindi, in Sanskrit. So they have this concept of a soul roaming around taking revenge. Well, the soul cannot roam around and take revenge according to Islam, because the soul doesn't exist in this domain anymore, has now transitioned to another realm. And I've already told you, it is either locked up in Sijin, or it is in one of the levels of Barzakh, where the souls of those who are not locked up in Sijin are placed. So this individual soul has some relationship with this world, and I've already talked about that in great detail in the past. And I told you that when we will talk about the life of Barzakh, we will talk about that. And then I've already told you the different stages of Barzakh. If it is hard for you to find those videos on TikTok, then visit my YouTube channel, Deep Deen, Deepdeen, and go under the playlists, and then you will find a playlist for Barzakh. There's a playlist for Jinn, and there are some of the other playlists. Well, what I would recommend you do on daily basis, when you get up in the morning, recite Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, preferably 3 times each. Before you sleep, recite Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas. After every salah, recite Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas at least once. Just make this your habit. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inshallah protect you from the jinns and also from the sihr, from the magic. And also it is recommended that you recite Surah Al-Baqarah, or at least play it, because these days so many recordings are available by so many reciters. Whichever reciter you find you like it, you can play it. A lot of people in the past have recommended to play it in the recitation style of Qari Abdul Basit. That's one of the recommendations, to play that recording in your house, maybe out loud, so that each and every corner of the house the voice reaches. And recite Quran in different parts of your house. Do not limit it to certain places only. So the mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praying in different parts of your house. Do not limit yourself from praying only in one place. That way, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's remembrance is done in all over the house, it causes this good energy to come in, and it drives the bad energy out. Call adhan in your house. As the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, it drives the shayateen away. There are different recommendations ulama have done for different reasons. But anyway, Ayatul Kursi, recite it before you sleep, recite it after every salah, and teach your children to do the same thing. So it is by the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will find peace. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. So through the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bring peace in your life. And when you are reciting these surahs, pay attention to the words. In the beginning, you may have a difficult thing, because you probably, if Arabic is not your language, you may not understand each and every word's meaning. But try to spend some time understanding the meanings of these words. And some of them are repeating words, like qul, say, for example, is a repeating word. And anas is for the people, that's a repeating word. So like that, you will build a vocabulary of Quran as well. I hope this answers your question about the ghosts, as these paranormal activities that are attributed to something called ghost most likely are jinn activities, which are performed when our roads cross.